Saturday night. The kitchen still warm from supper. A woman standing at the bathroom sink with a cloth in her hand and something in a jar that didn't have a label because it didn't need one. She knew what was in it. Her mother knew. Her mother's mother knew. And by Sunday morning, when she walked through those church doors, every single thing about her, her skin, her hair, her hands, the way she carried herself, was a declaration, not of vanity, of dignity, of something the world spent years trying to convince her
to keep them
she
fresh.
didn't possess.
They look wonderful,
What happened
Mama.
in those hours between Saturday night and Sunday morning was not a beauty routine. It was a ceremony. It was a language. It was the way Black women said, without saying a word, "We are still here. We know our worth. And you will see it when we walk in that door." That knowledge, all of it, was carried in hands, not written in books. It was passed from grandmother to mother to daughter in bathrooms too small and kitchens too warm, and at vanity tables with mirrors that had seen everything. And then quietly, one product at a time, one decade at a time, it started to disappear. Not because it stopped working, because someone figured out how to sell you something cheaper to replace it. I'm Viola. And
There
what
we
I'm
go,
about
nice
to
and
tell
straight.
you,
You're all set
your
for the dance.
grandmother
Oh,
knew
I
this.
can't wait. It feels so
The question
smooth.
is whether anyone told you. If this is your first time here, do me a favor right now. Hit that subscribe button, because what we do on this channel every single week is dig up what was buried, hit subscribe, ring that bell, and let's get into it. Number 1, Vaseline on the face before bed. Not the fancy version, not the scented version, the plain blue jar that sat on the edge of every bathroom shelf in Black America. Before retinol had a name, before the word moisturizer appeared on a television commercial, before any dermatologist told anyone what to put on their face at night. Black grandmothers already had the answer, and it cost 35 cents. The ritual was simple, and it was specific. You washed your face with warm water. You patted, not rubbed, it dry. And while it was still slightly damp, you pressed a thin coat of Vaseline into your skin. Not thick, thin, just enough to seal. Just enough to keep what the water gave you from escaping into the night air. Now your grandmother knew this. She didn't know the word occlusive. She didn't know that in 2009, dermatologists would publish papers explaining how petroleum jelly creates a barrier that locks in transepidermal moisture and reduces overnight water loss by up to 60%. She didn't need to know. She had results. She had her mother's skin at 60. Smooth, luminous, fine lines that told a story instead of screaming one. The industry spent 50 years trying to replace this with things that cost $12, $15, $45. They added fragrance. They added chemicals. They made bottles that looked expensive and used words that sounded scientific. And what did it get us? Skin that needed more products to fix what the new products were causing. Your grandmother never had that problem. She had a blue jar and the knowledge of what worked. Number 2, pressing comb on Saturday night, not Sunday morning. This is a distinction that matters more than people realize. The ritual was never done the morning of. It was always done the night before, after the kitchen had cooled down, after the children were settled, with enough time for the hair to breathe and settle before it met the outside air. She would heat the pressing comb on the stove, the old metal kind, held over the flame until the heat was exactly right. Not too hot, Too hot scorched, not too cool. Too cool didn't press. She knew by holding it near her cheek without touching. She knew by the sound it made on a damp towel. She knew the way women know things they've done 10,000 times. The pressing comb did something chemical straighteners never could. It was temporary by design. It responded to moisture, to weather, to sweat, which meant the hair was never locked into a chemical state it couldn't recover from. Monday morning, some humidity, and the hair remembered what it was. That's not a flaw. That's wisdom. The relaxer kit arrived in the 1950s and was marketed as convenience. What it actually delivered was permanence. And permanence in a chemical process means permanent damage to the hair shaft. Black women's pressing combs were not replaced by something better. They were replaced by something more profitable. Number 3, hot oil treatment with castor oil and heat, not warm oil, hot, or at least thoroughly warmed, put in a small pot on the stove, or in a bowl set inside a larger bowl of boiling water, until the castor oil lost its resistance and ran thin and liquid between the fingers. Then applied to the scalp, section by section, massaged in with the pads of the fingers in slow circles that you could feel in your temples. Then a plastic bag or a cotton cloth tied at the top. And she sat by the stove or near the heater for 30 minutes while the heat drove the oil into the shaft. Castor oil is one of the densest natural oils on earth. Its molecular weight means it sits on the hair shaft rather than absorbing too quickly, which is exactly what you want for a treatment. The heat opens the cuticle, allows the oil to penetrate deeper than it would at room temperature, and the result is hair that is heavier, more flexible, less prone to breakage. A study published in 2015 confirmed that ricinoleic acid, the primary fatty acid in castor oil, has measurable effects on scalp circulation and may support follicle health. Your great-grandmother was doing this in 1942 with a pot on a wood stove. Science took 70 years to write it down. That's not old-fashioned. That's genius. Number 4, baking soda scrub on the elbows and knees. Before Sunday service, the elbows and knees were non-negotiable. This was not optional. This was the standard. And no one was going to a store to buy a special product for it. She mixed baking soda with enough water or coconut oil to make a paste, thick enough to stay put, wet enough to work, and rubbed it into both joints in small circles until the dead skin released and the skin underneath came up brighter. Then she moisturized immediately while the skin was still open and receptive. Baking soda is a mild alkali with a pH of about 9, slightly above skin's natural level, which is why it loosens the adhesion between dead skin cells and the living tissue beneath. It is, in functional terms, a chemical exfoliant, the same principle behind expensive AHA products sold today for $40 in a glass jar. The women who did this every Saturday night didn't have the vocabulary for what they were doing. They didn't need it. They had elbows that didn't look ashen on Sunday morning. They had knees that didn't show every seam of the stockings they wore. They had results, week after week, without a single specialty product. And that's what the beauty industry has never wanted you to sit with too long. Number 5, raw egg in the hair before washing. This is one that people hear and dismiss until they understand why it works. Before any protein treatment existed in a bottle, Black women were cracking a raw egg into their hair, working it through from root to tip. and leaving it to sit under a warm cloth for 20 to 30 minutes before washing. Eggs are approximately 12% protein by weight, primarily albumin and keratin-adjacent proteins that temporarily bond to damaged areas of the hair shaft, filling in gaps in the cuticle and increasing the hair's tensile strength. When your hair is protein depleted from heat, from manipulation, from hard water, an egg treatment is one of the most efficient repairs available anywhere, at any price. Now, you had to rinse with cool water. Warm water would cook the egg in your hair, and that created a problem that wasn't pleasant. The women who passed this down knew this. They didn't explain the protein chemistry. They just said, cool water only, and that instruction mattered. That precision was the difference between the treatment working and the treatment failing. That level of specificity, that embedded technical knowledge passed down in a single instruction, is what I want you to understand. This wasn't guesswork. This was refined practice, tested across generations. You didn't write it down. You learned it by watching and by listening. Number 6, petroleum jelly on the edges before anything else. The edges were sacred. They were laid on Saturday night and protected through Sunday morning, and the protocol for protecting them was specific. After pressing or styling, she ran a thin coat of Vaseline along the hairline, just the very edge, before wrapping the hair with a silk or satin scarf for the night. Not cotton. Cotton pulls moisture out, not a rough fabric. Something that would let the hair stay exactly where it had been placed, without drying out or frizzing at the line. The petroleum jelly served as a barrier between the hairline and the fabric. It kept the edges moisturized. It prevented the friction that over time causes thinning along the hairline that the beauty industry now sells you treatments to fix. Your grandmother was preventing the problem before it started. She wasn't treating symptoms. She was practicing prevention. The silk scarf, by the way, was not a luxury item. It was a functional tool. The distinction matters, because when we lose the understanding of why something was done, we often lose the practice along with it. Now I want to pause for a second, family, because I need to hear from you. Drop a comment right now. What did the woman who raised you do the night before church that nobody does anymore? It could be something she put in her hair, something she mixed in the kitchen, some ritual she followed that you watched but never fully understood until now. Tell me her name. Give her her flowers right here in the comments. Because I promise you, somebody watching this right now grew up in the same house with the same jar on the same shelf. Let's find each other, family. Drop it below. Number 7, sugar scrub on the lips. Chapped lips were not an option on Sunday morning. Not the kind of chapped that showed through the color she was going to put on. So on Saturday night, before the rest of the face routine was done, she handled the lips. She mixed a small amount of granulated sugar with a drop of something. Sometimes oil, sometimes honey, sometimes just water. Worked it over the lips in small circles with a fingertip, then removed it with a warm, damp cloth. The result was lips that were smooth enough to take color evenly and soft enough to stay that way through most of the morning. Sugar exfoliation works because sucrose crystals are fine enough to remove dead skin cells without
Now
tearing
you
the
just smooth it
underlying
in
tissue,
gently like this.
unlike salt, which
Always
can be
take
too
care of your
sharp
skin,
for
you
the
hear.
delicate skin of the lips. The lip skin has no oil glands of its own, which means it depends entirely on external moisture. Removing the dead cell layer and immediately applying oil or wax gives fresh skin direct access to the moisture it can't produce on its own. Lip balm products didn't reach mass distribution until the 1970s. Before that, Black women in the South were handling this with ingredients they already had, and the results were not inferior. They were superior, because the method addressed the root problem rather than coating over it. Number 8, apple cider vinegar. Rinse on the hair. After washing, after the hot oil treatment, before any styling,
and you will
a
see
final
it
rinse of
when
apple
we
cider
walk
vinegar
in that
diluted
door.
in water, poured slowly through the hair, then rinsed out with cool water. Sometimes it was left in, diluted enough that the smell wouldn't carry. The hair shaft, when wet, has an open cuticle. If you dry it that way, the cuticle seals improperly, which leads to frizz, to dullness, to tangles that shouldn't exist. Apple cider vinegar has a pH of approximately 3, which is close to the natural pH of the hair shaft itself, around 4 to 5. When applied after washing, it closes the cuticle, seals the shaft, and allows the hair to dry with smoothness. This is the exact same principle behind every pH balancing conditioner, every color depositing rinse, every after-treatment toner sold in salons today. The mechanism is identical. The ingredients are different. The price is different. The margin is very different. Your grandmother was working with food-grade vinegar she already had in the house. The result was hair that dried shinier, laid flatter, and held a style longer than hair that didn't receive the rinse. The science confirmed this in 2014. Your grandmother confirmed it in 1958. I know which confirmation I trust more. Number 9, coconut oil on the skin while still wet from the bath. Not after drying.
Science took
not
70
on dry
years
skin.
to write it down.
The moment she stepped out of the tub, while the skin was still damp, still warm, still open, she applied coconut oil from the shoulders down, pressed it in with her palms, and then patted dry. The towel took the excess. The skin kept what it needed. This is a practice that the Ayurvedic tradition has documented for centuries, and that dermatologists have only recently begun to formalize in what they call soak and seal therapy for conditions like eczema and xerosis. The principle is that water alone cannot penetrate deep enough to hydrate. It evaporates. But when you seal water into the skin immediately before it can evaporate, using an oil with small enough molecular structures to partially penetrate, you achieve lasting moisture rather than temporary surface softening. Coconut oil specifically has a lauric acid content of approximately 47%, a fatty acid shown to have antimicrobial properties, and a molecular size that allows partial penetration into the skin barrier. It doesn't just sit on top. It partially enters. It partially seals. It performs both functions simultaneously. Saturday night, standing on a bath mat in a bathroom with a small window, a Black grandmother in rural Georgia was doing exactly what a Beverly Hills dermatologist would prescribe in 2021. She just called it getting ready for church. Number 10, witch hazel as a toner on the face. Hazel, the brown glass bottle, the smell that was sharp and clean and slightly medicinal. You put it on a cotton ball and you pressed it to your face after washing every single time, and it stung just enough to tell you it was working. Witch hazel is an astringent derived from the Hamamelis virginiana plant, and it was used in black households for generations as a facial toner, a scalp treatment, an aftershave for the men, and a spot treatment for blemishes. Its active compounds are primarily hamamelatanin and gallic acid, reduce inflammation, temporarily tighten the appearance of pores, and create an environment on the skin surface that is hostile to the bacteria associated with breakouts. The Dickinson's brand bottle was everywhere. It cost almost nothing, and it did exactly what 7 different modern products claim to do separately: mattify, minimize, clarify, balance, soothe, tone, and protect, all in one cotton ball, all in 30 seconds. The reason this got replaced had nothing to do with effectiveness. It had everything to do with the fact that one inexpensive product that genuinely works is a terrible business model. The beauty industry needed problems to sell solutions to. Witch hazel was too good at its job for too little money. So it got pushed to the back of the shelf while the front filled up with things that required each other. Number 11, raw honey as a face mask. Once or twice a month, not every week, but regularly enough to matter. She would spread raw honey over her face, leave it for 15 to 20 minutes, and rinse with warm water. That was the whole thing. No additions necessary. No mixing required. Raw honey is one of the most complex topical ingredients in existence. It contains hydrogen peroxide in trace amounts, a natural antimicrobial. It contains gluconic acid, a gentle exfoliant. It contains antioxidants in the form of flavonoids and phenolic compounds. It has a water activity so low that bacteria cannot survive in it. It is hygroscopic, meaning it draws moisture from the air toward the skin. And it has a natural pH between 3 and 4.5, which, as we discussed with the vinegar rinse, is close to the skin's own natural acidity. A single ingredient, all of those functions simultaneously. There is currently a multi-billion-dollar market for honey-derived skincare products. The companies selling them at $30, $40, $60 a jar are extracting the active compounds from the same substance your grandmother was applying directly from a jar she bought at the store for $1.50. She didn't need the extraction. She didn't need the formulation. She was applying the source. And on Sunday morning, her face showed it. Number 12, cornstarch to set the face. Setting powder. Before setting powder was a product category, there was cornstarch, a small amount on a soft cloth or a powder puff. Press gently to the T-zone, to the areas that tended to shine by midday, and the face was set, clean, matte, ready. Cornstarch is a fine particle starch that works through the same mechanism as silica, the active ingredient in most modern setting powders. It absorbs excess oil and creates a light, matte film on the skin's surface. The particles scatter light slightly, which creates the softening effect that modern powders advertise as blurring. The physics are identical. The price difference is not. Now, cornstarch is not oil-free. It contains trace lipids from the corn kernel. For some skin types, daily use over time can create issues. These women knew this, which is why it was used specifically on Sunday morning, specifically on the shine-prone areas, and not every single day. There was an intelligence to the application that accounted for what the ingredient was and what it wasn't. That calibration, knowing the limits of what you're working with, is itself a kind of knowledge. Number 13, aloe vera straight from the leaf. If there was a plant in the yard or on the windowsill, it was very often an aloe plant, not a decoration, a medicine cabinet, a beauty supply. The same plant that handled a burn on Tuesday was cut open for a face treatment on Saturday. She would break a leaf at the base, let the yellow sap drain. That's the latex layer, the part you don't want on skin, and then split it open to reveal the clear gel inside. That gel went on the face, in the hair as a light hold agent, on sunburned skin, on rashes, on new scars. It was the most versatile single substance in the house. Aloe vera gel contains over 75 bioactive compounds, including a samannan or a polysaccharide that accelerates wound healing and skin regeneration, along with enzymes, minerals, vitamins C and E, and salicylic acid, which is the same compound found in modern acne treatments. It also has anti-inflammatory effects that have been confirmed in peer-reviewed literature multiple times since 2005. The beauty industry sells you aloe, but they sell you processed aloe, stabilized aloe, aloe with preservatives and pH adjusters and fragrance. The closer you get to the raw leaf, the more active the compounds. Your grandmother's plant on the windowsill was more potent than anything in a green bottle at the drugstore. Not because it was magic, because it was whole. Number 14. Rose water as a finishing mist. The last thing before leaving the house on Sunday morning. A small bottle, sometimes store-bought, sometimes made by soaking dried rose petals in distilled water for several days. And she would press it gently to her face with a cloth or spray it lightly and let it settle. Rose water has a pH between 4 and 5, placing it naturally in alignment with the skin's acid mantle. It contains phenylethanol and geraniol, compounds with mild antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties. As a finishing step, it closed the pores slightly, refreshed the skin after any powdering, and gave the face a quality that no one could quite name, but everyone could see. A particular kind of freshness that didn't look like makeup and didn't look like bare skin. It looked like health. The Ottomans were distilling rose water in the 10th century. Persian physicians recommended it for skin. And black women in America, some of whom had never read a word of Persian medicine, never heard of the Ottoman Empire's cosmetic traditions, arrived at the same substance through their own inheritance, a different path, the same destination. Because some things simply work across every time and every place that has ever tried them. And the beauty industry, to its credit, noticed. Rosewater toners now retail for $18 to $60. Your grandmother's version cost less than $1 to make and was more pure. Number 15. Glycerin mixed with water for the hair. Not straight glycerin, glycerin diluted. Sometimes 1 part glycerin to 10 parts water. Sometimes a bit more concentrated, depending on the season, depending on the humidity, depending on what the hair needed. Sprayed or dabbed on with a cloth to refresh the hair in the morning before church, or used as part of the styling process after washing. Glycerin is a humectant, meaning it draws moisture from the surrounding environment toward whatever it has been applied to.
We give
In
thanks
humid
for the
climates,
blessings of
this
this
is
evening
extraordinary.
and ask
The
that you
hair
watch
stays
over
soft,
us as we
pliable
prepare this
and
meal.
responsive because it is constantly drawing moisture from the air around it. In very dry climates, the calculation changes, and the women who used this knew it. They used less in winter, more in summer, They adjusted
We
for the
shall
conditions.
overcome.
That adjusted,
Deep in
that
my
season
heart,
of thinking
I
about what
do
the hair
believe.
needed is a form of sophisticated observation that no product label has ever successfully replaced. You cannot bottle common sense about your own body's relationship to its environment. That's something that has to be transmitted person to person. And it was transmitted until the transmission got interrupted by the beauty industry telling everyone that the old way was outdated and the new product was superior. Glycerin remains one of the most effective humectants in modern cosmetic formulation. You can buy a 4-ounce bottle at any drugstore for under $2. Your grandmother knew this before any cosmetic chemist published a paper about it. Number 16, beeswax for the edges and brows. The edges we covered, but beeswax also went on the brows. Shaped, groomed, held in place with a small amount pressed in with a fingertip or a clean toothbrush. The same jar that handled the hairline handled the brows. One product, two purposes. Beeswax is a complex ester that forms a flexible, water-resistant film on whatever surface it's applied to. It is malleable when warmed by the fingertips, by body heat, and sets firm once it cools. It holds without stickiness. It doesn't flake. It doesn't absorb into the skin, which means it stays on top, doing its structural work rather than disappearing. Modern brow gels contain either synthetic polymers or, increasingly, beeswax, because beeswax works. The innovation in modern brow products is mostly
after
in
week,
packaging and marketing, not
without
in
a single
chemistry.
specialty product.
The functional ingredient is often older than your grandmother's grandmother. Number 17, oatmeal bath for the skin. Before any special occasion, and Sunday counted as a special occasion, there was sometimes a colloidal oatmeal soak. Not a long one, 20 minutes maybe, but that bath changed what the skin felt like going into the day. Colloidal oatmeal is oats that have been ground to a fine powder and remain suspended in water rather than sinking to the bottom. When you sit in a bath containing it, the beta-glucan and avenanthromide compounds coat the skin surface with a fine film that reduces irritation, calms inflammation, and creates a temporary barrier that slows moisture loss. The FDA approved colloidal oatmeal as a skin protectant in 1989. Your grandmother approved it somewhere around 1952, which is to say 37 years earlier, without waiting for anyone's permission. She didn't use the word colloidal. She said you run the oatmeal through a clean cloth into the water before you get in, and make sure it's
method
ground
addressed
fine
the
so
root
it doesn't
problem.
block the drain. That is an instruction that reflects an understanding of what the oatmeal was supposed to do. Stay suspended, not sink, without ever having read a chemistry textbook. That's knowledge that deserves to be called what it is, sophisticated. Number 18, coffee grounds on dark circles and puffiness under the eyes. This one was specifically for Sunday, for the nights when sleep had been short, and the morning had come fast, and the circles under the eyes were telling the whole story. She would press used coffee grounds, still slightly warm, wrapped in a thin cloth, gently under the eyes, and leave them there for 10 minutes. Caffeine is a vasoconstrictor. It temporarily narrows blood vessels, which reduces the pooling of blood that creates the dark, purplish quality of under-eye circles. It also reduces inflammation, which addresses the puffiness. Eye creams that retail for $40 to $90 today list caffeine as their primary or secondary active ingredient. The mechanism is unchanged. The delivery system is different. The price is very different. Used coffee grounds also contain chlorogenic acids, antioxidants, and a mild physical exfoliant quality from the granule texture. Your grandmother's kitchen waste was a multi-action eye treatment. She never called it that. She just knew that after 10 minutes with the grounds, she looked less tired. And on a Sunday morning when she was going to stand before her community, that mattered. Number 19. Lemon juice on the knuckles and dark spots. Applied directly with a cotton ball or just a squeezed wedge pressed to the area and left to work for several minutes before rinsing. It stung on cracked skin, and the women who did this knew to do it before the skin got dry, not after. Timing mattered. The active agent is citric acid, an alpha hydroxy acid that exfoliates the upper layers of skin and inhibits an enzyme called tyrosinase, which is responsible for melanin production, used consistently on hyperpigmented areas. Citric acid gradually lightens them by reducing the enzyme that deposits excess pigmentation and by removing pigmented surface cells. Hydroquinone, the active ingredient in prescription-strength lightening products, works through a similar mechanism, tyrosinase inhibition, but with significantly more risk of irritation, rebound hyperpigmentation, and long-term damage to the skin barrier at higher concentrations. Your grandmother's lemon wedge worked more slowly. It also didn't damage anything. She didn't want to erase her complexion. She wanted even tone, dignified presentation, not erasure, refinement. And she understood intuitively the difference between a treatment that works gently over time and one that forces a result the skin wasn't ready for. Number 20, rice water rinse on the hair. The water left over from rinsing raw rice, not washed away, not discarded but collected in a bowl and used on the hair, poured over from roots to ends after washing, left in for several minutes, sometimes used as a soak, sometimes fermented for a day or two before using, which increased the concentration of inositol. Inositol is a carbohydrate that penetrates damaged hair and repairs it from within the shaft. Rice water also contains amino acids, B vitamins, and minerals that coat the hair cuticle and add slip, reducing friction during detangling, reducing breakage during styling. Women in the Yao minority of China, where hair that reaches floor length is documented, have used rice water as their primary hair treatment for centuries. Black grandmothers in the American South arrived at the same practice through entirely separate cultural inheritance. The beauty industry didn't popularize rice water treatments until approximately 2018, when they began appearing in products retailing for $20 to $45 a bottle. The ingredient inside those bottles is functionally identical to what your grandmother poured from a bowl she filled while cooking. What the jar costs has nothing to do with what the ingredient does. This channel exists, in part, to say that out loud. Number 21, bay rum aftershave and scalp treatment. This one belonged to the men in the house, mostly. But the women knew it, used it on their scalps, borrowed it because it worked. Bay rum is a solution made from bay laurel leaves and rum, and it had been in black medicine cabinets since at least the 1920s. On the scalp, it stimulated circulation, kept the scalp clean, dressed flaky, and the smell, spiced, slightly sharp, was the smell of getting ready for something that mattered. Bay rum contains eugenol, the same compound which has measurable antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties. As a scalp treatment, its alcohol-based cleanses the surface. The eugenol reduces inflammation at the follicle level, and the massage required to apply it stimulates blood flow to the area. That massage, by the way, is now backed by a 2019 study showing that standardized scalp massage performed daily for 24 weeks increased hair thickness by a measurable amount in participants. Your grandmother was doing this every Saturday, not because a study told her to, because she had evidence, her own hair, her mother's hair, the hair of every woman in her family who had done the same thing for decades. The evidence in her hands was more reliable than the evidence in any lab. The lab just finally caught up. Number 22. Shea butter on the scalp and ends. Raw shea butter, not whipped, not refined. The kind that came in a simple container and was pale yellow and smelled like the earth had made something on purpose. She would take a small amount, just enough, between her palms, let it melt from body heat, and work it through the ends of the hair where breakage begins, and through the scalp where the skin can get dry and tight in cold weather. Shea butter contains stearic acid and oleic acid in roughly equal proportions, a balance that makes it exceptional for both barrier function and skin penetration. It also contains triterpene esters, which have measurable anti-inflammatory properties, and cinnamic acid, a UV filter that provides mild sun protection. It is, in chemical terms, a complex therapeutic ingredient that also happens to be one of the most intensively studied natural oils in cosmetic science. The refined, processed, deodorized shea butter in mass market products has had many of these compounds removed in the name of aesthetics. A lighter color, a more neutral smell, a texture that blends more easily. What is removed in that process is often exactly what made the raw version effective. Your grandmother's shea butter smelled strong because it was whole, and her scalp and ends reflected it every Sunday morning. Number 23, vinegar foot soak. The feet were not forgotten on Saturday night. Before church, the feet were handled, and a vinegar soak was often part of it. Warm water, a generous pour of white vinegar, and both feet in the basin for 20 minutes while she sat and rested after the rest of the preparation. Acetic acid, poivre au poivre, the active compound in vinegar, creates an environment in which the fungi associated with athlete's foot and the bacteria associated with foot odor cannot survive. The slightly acidic solution also softens
not going backwards,
making them easier
going
to
home.
And the soak itself at a comfortable temperature improved circulation in the feet after a long week of standing. There is an entire
That stained glass
category
window
of
was put in the
commercial
year your
foot care
daddy was
products.
born. It's
Antifungal
beautiful, Grandma.
treatments, callus softeners, foot soaks, circulation salves that collectively replace this 130-minute ritual with a basket of products costing $60 to $100 combined. The basket does not outperform the basin. I want to be clear about that. And she was not done after the soak. The feet were dried, rubbed with Vaseline heel to toe, and covered with cotton socks for the night. She walked into Sunday morning with feet that no one could see under her stockings, but that she knew were right. That kind of thoroughness, caring for the parts no one sees, is itself a form of dignity. Number 24, camphor oil for the scalp in winter, cold months. dry
And
air,
that is why we seal them
central
tightly
heating
seal
that desiccated
to keep them
everything
fresh.
inside
They
a
look
house.
wonderful,
The
Mama.
scalp needed extra attention in winter, and camphor oil was one of the answers. A few drops worked into the scalp, massaged in with the fingertips, and the warmth it created was immediate. A coolness followed by heat, an increase in circulation, a loosening of the tight, dry feeling that a winter scalp carries. Camphor is a terpenoid compound derived from the cinnamomum camphora tree, and it has documented vasodilatory effects when applied topically, meaning it causes blood vessels near the surface to dilate, increasing local blood flow. Increased blood flow to the scalp means more nutrients, more oxygen, and more activity at the follicle level. It also has mild analgesic properties, which is why the sensation is one of relief. It was used carefully because camphor at high concentrations is not gentle. Too much, undiluted, can irritate. The women who used this knew to dilute it, knew how much was enough, knew the difference between the useful warmth and the kind of warmth that meant you'd use too much. That calibration was transmitted alongside the practice. It didn't exist in a bottle. It existed in the instruction. Number 25, prayer, stillness, and the act of taking care as a declaration. I have spent this entire video talking about ingredients, and all of it is true. But I want to close with the thing underneath all of it, the thing that made the ritual mean more than the sum of its parts. When a black woman in 1955 spent Saturday night taking care of herself, thoroughly, unhurriedly, with knowledge passed from her mother and her mother's mother, she was doing something that the world around her spent tremendous energy trying to prevent. She was declaring herself worthy of care. She was saying, I matter, my body matters, my appearance matters, not to anyone else's gaze, to my own. She was going to walk into that church on Sunday morning and be seen. And she was going to be seen on her own terms, with her own knowledge, her own ingredients, her own hands, not because anyone told her to look a certain way, not because a magazine said she should, because she knew her worth, and she dressed her body in that knowledge every single Saturday night. Viola grew up watching this, watching women take time that the world had not given them easily, and use it to practice a kind of love toward themselves. And when the beauty industry arrived with shortcuts and chemicals and products that promised to replace all of it, faster, easier, more convenient, what it actually took was the ritual, the slowness, the intention, the knowledge that what you put on your body was made with your own hands from things you understood. You cannot bottle that. You can sell something that looks like it, but you cannot sell what it actually is. What your grandmother knew, family, all 25 of these things and every one she practiced that we didn't have time to name, was not old-fashioned. It was ahead of everything that came after. And when we bring it back, when we remember it, practice it, pass it to our daughters the way it was once passed to us, we are not going backward. We are going home. I'll see you next time, family.